Okay, I want to review what we are going to talk about today in our reading meeting on Google Meets, but I want you to have it now just in case you start early, and then again later in case you need to refresh. This is the plot line of a fiction story. The plot line only refers to a fiction story. So you're going to need your reading journal and a pencil, and you're going to want to copy this down. Okay, as needed, push pause so you can copy things into your journal. The next thing I need you to do is to actually draw, and we're going to draw what they call the plot line for a fiction story. You're going to start off kind of way down here, and you're just going to draw about a 1-inch line. And then you're going to go up almost like you're making a triangle. And then you're going to come down about 3 lines or so on your paper. And then you're going to go across. So you have a very interesting line now. It almost looks like a mountain or a roller coaster. I've heard it all those ways. This is what the plot of a fiction story looks like. And as you become more familiar with it, you'll agree. Down here, I'd like you to write the numbers 1 and 2. This crazy little sign stands for and. Over here on this slope, I'd like you to write 3. Right here at the peak is 4. Coming down is 5. And then underneath over here is 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. There's 6 different elements that you need to know in a fiction story. 1 and 2 go together, and they make up one of the plot elements, but they're separate things, so I want you to make sure that you have the numbers. So on my page, I'm going to go 1 and 2, and then draw a line. And I'm going to skip 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm going to tell you what all of these things are. Here, let me get you all of those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So 1 and 2 are the introduction to your story. And 1 and 2 are your characters and your setting. At the beginning of every good fiction story, the author is letting you know who your characters are and where they are. It kind of sets up your storyline so that you're ready to go on an adventure with your characters or relive something that's happened in the past, or, go to faraway places. Depends on what your character is into. But 1 and 2 are always your introduction, and it's always your characters and your setting. And what makes a good fiction story is that our characters run into problems. Oh my goodness. They either have some kind of a disaster, or they're in a fight with a friend, or they've been, shipped off in a rocket ship to another planet and they have to figure out how to get home. All of those things are problems that you might see in a fiction story. And when we run into problems, see how this line kind of rises or goes up? We call this the rising action. This is the rising action of a story, when your characters are facing all sorts of problems. They might solve a couple of little problems along the way, like they lost their shoe and then they found it, but they don't solve the big problem that's happening in the story. Everything just kind of builds, and you get all sorts of crazy things, drama usually, and they face some kind of a problem or a conflict, something that they have to figure out how to fix. And then you run into number 4. Number 4 gets a C at the top, the big letter C, because 4 stands for the climax of a story. At the climax of a story, your character realizes their problem, and then they figure out a way to try and fix it, or to resolve the conflict that they were having. Like if them and your main character and their best friend were fighting over something, the main character has now figured out a way to say, hey, wait a minute, I got it. I know how to fix this. So that's the climax of a story, when everything just kind of comes to a head and you're like, oh my gosh, it can't get any worse. And then your main character goes, haha, I know what to do. And then you come to number 5. Number 5, yay, everybody's happy again. And that happy face stands for a solution. So our character has figured out how to solve their problem, and now they're actually going to solve it. So number 5 is what we call the falling action in a story. And if you think of it kind of as a roller coaster, like you're trucking along and you're going way up and you get up that big top hill and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to go back again. And then you have to go forward, right? And then you start falling down that big hill. So this is what we call the falling action. But it's usually pretty short. In a fiction story, the solution part of the problem, the solution part of the story is short compared to the rest of it. So falling action is number 5. And then we come to number 6. And number 6 is when we usually discuss the beef of a story. You know, what lesson did our character learn? How did they grow? What kind of major changes do we see in our character? And this is what we call the resolution of a story. And if you look at this word is solution, and then we add the RE. It means to resolve again or to solve again. So resolution is when we've faced our problems, we figured out how to solve them, we actually solved them, and then we learned some kind of a lesson. So the resolution of a story is when things kind of close up and they're ending, and your characters are all happy again, or they have at least come to terms with whatever has happened to them. So this is what we call the plot line of a fiction story. Today in your work, you're going to be picking out these different pieces in a short story about a young man named Pablo. So do your very best work. Make sure you use everything we talked about today in our reading meeting, and do a good job.